Welcome to CJRU Artist Review, and I'm Kejo Buchanan. And today my guest is an Iranian Canadian composer, pianist, and songwriter, and so much more. Welcome, Behrooz Mihankhah.
Hi, thanks for having me, Kejo.
Thank you, Behrooz. And please reintroduce yourself and tell us where you're coming in from.
Okay, my name is Behrooz Mihankhah, as you mentioned, and I am right now in my office space at my home in Halifax, Nova Scotia, on the east coast of Canada. And as I'm an Iranian composer, I was born in Iran, and I spent some time in India before coming to Canada. And I'm here now with you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the reintroduction. And I'm coming into you from Toronto in the dish with one spoon territory. And I just wanted to, let's get started with some influences, because I know you've had quite a journey coming from Iran through India, and now you're at home with us here in Canada. And I just wanted to know a little bit maybe about has there been a musical journey while you're doing all those transitions that you might want to share?
Yeah, so I was born in Iran in like early 90s, 91. And then I was there till I was 15 until my family, we decided as a family to move, to migrate to Canada. Canada was our final destination, but then I and my mom ended up going to India, where my brother and my dad ended up in Canada. And so we were separated for quite a while. And so I didn't start performing professionally until I was in India. So I took a few lessons when I was in Iran on the piano, but I didn't actually start playing it until later on when I was 19 years old. So when I moved to India, and around the age of like 15 or 16, I started playing the guitar and performing as a songwriter. And when I was around 18 or 19, I believe, I went to this music school that's in South India, near Chennai, called Swarnabhumi Academy of Music. And they had faculty come in from like Manhattan School of Music in Berkeley. And it was essentially a jazz school, or like a contemporary school, with but they also taught like South Indian music, like Carnatic music, and Konakol, which is essentially it's like an ancient rhythmic language, where you might have come across this, which is they basically teach their students like specific rhythms in by verbalizing it, like takadimi, takajuno, that sort of thing.
Okay, no, so, that's cool.
Yeah. So basically, like already, like I had all the stuff that I was doing in from my Iranian background, all the for Farsi music stuff that I had, and I was like performing guitar, and also like learning rock music and Dylan, like the Doors and Beatles and that sort of stuff. And also after moving to this music school, I learned about all the stuff in like South Indian music and Konakol, and also learned about Western harmony and jazz and things like that. So that kind of exposed me to all these different types of music.
Quite a blend. That's quite a blend of different sounds. So how do you manage like all of that, because you're dealing even with different ways of written, because one is verbal, right? And then the other one is a written kind of writing. How do you?
Well, I feel like at first, when you're early on, when you're trying to get into something, it's just, there's nothing, you can't really be too specific with what you are doing. Like you're not really creating yet, you're just absorbing whatever is coming in. And then there's certain things like in music that stand out for me. Always like I'm not even sure, sometimes I don't even know what it is that I like about something. There's certain music that I'm just like, oh, I like that. Like, I wonder what that is. And that's what I'll investigate, or I'll look into, to try and somehow have it influence my music, and I like listen to it like repeatedly or
over and over again. You hear a certain rhythm or sound, and you're like, oh, what is that? And
exactly. Something that just like stands out, or like a feeling that it could be an emotional thing, or it could be just like a specific rhythmic that I'm like, oh, what are they doing there? Like, I just want to something just resonates, and that's what I ended up how do you say, investigating or looking into more.
Yes, absolutely. Because it is a bit of yeah, there's definitely an emotional component when writing. It isn't all just technical. It's something that you just, I guess you'd say, intuition or whatever you want to call it, but something that's coming from within that tells you, okay, yes, that's going to work. That's going to put this together. And so in terms of working and putting things together, are there any specific teachers or even experiences with bands that have helped you and shaped your music where it is now?
Yeah, I feel like I have studied with quite like I can't even count anymore at this point with the number of people that I have like
I
taken lessons
know.
from or studied
Yes.
with. Yeah, but
That's good. You're good. You're a constant student, and that's a good thing.
yeah, and I feel like that's definitely a lifelong thing as music, and I'm sure in any field, it's just like we're always like going to be students of that, and but I don't really, I can't think of because there's like each teacher has something different to offer. Like there's definitely for example teachers who are more, they talk about more like the emotional aspects of things, and there's definitely teachers that talk more about technical side of things, or teachers that teach you how to like think about certain things. And it is with studying jazz, I found that there's a when people study music there, and this is probably relevant to all the other fields as well, but we build up these walls around us, like based and we, in a way that we attach our self-worth and our like to our ability to play the music, and like we may feel like insecure and about certain things, and that only makes things worse and like makes learning more difficult. Because like I found when I was in school, I was always like in my head, I would get lost in the forms of the songs, and but the whole like all I had to do was just like listen to what's happening and try and follow what's happening. But then I was just like concerned of what others are thinking about me or what I'm playing. There's like
and this is supposed to be a learning environment.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very hard. Like I feel like teachers that help me break through those like are definitely like, yeah, the best. Like teachers that like show you that it's like not really that important that if you play the right note or wrong note, like it's just music. It's supposed to be fun or enjoyable.
Yeah,
like,
you're not aiming for perfection. Yeah. It'll eventually come. I agree. I think like, yeah, you're not aiming for perfection. You are in a learning environment. I think sometimes we forget that. But yes, I understand exactly what you mean in terms of your work and your skill. And sometimes, I get a little bit irate if things aren't quite, it's like, I don't know about that recording when I'm putting together the show for Jali Journey. And then I realized, okay, you're in community radio and you're learning. So yeah, just give yourself a break and keep going, like.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, yeah, just approaching everything that way would be just so much easier to like not worry too much about things going wrong, or just like not having that be directly attached to your self-worth, or like what you've like, because our emotional states are, because like in music specifically is very, very much a personal and emotional thing, and it's something that you're doing most of the time doing with other people, so it is a community thing. So it's good to kind of to look at it from outside and be like, okay, what I'm doing is just making music. It's not that important. It's not like you're not a surgeon or a nurse, or the consequences of your actions are not gonna kill someone. Like
that too. But I think what you said also before is even most important. Like your skills level is not equal to your self-worth. Like you are already valuable as a person, and you're just learning this thing. And well, let's be honest, in these past 2 years, it's probably music as well as other art forms I found has been incredibly supportive. Even recently, I was listening to this British composer and pianist that I follow on Instagram when it's not down. And Sam West, and he was talking about how he put this kind of recorder on his roof, right?
Okay.
To record bird songs, right?
Mhm.
So he's using that as a kind of like experiment. And I
Yeah.
want to talk to you about this because I know you do a lot of experimental things as an experiment to kind of start building. And he's on his piano starting to build songs around these bird songs that he's listening to. So, you know, sometimes cultural blends isn't necessarily even just music. It could be from nature itself. But, you know, how do you put that? How do you put everything together? Like, are you using different band members' ideas, and how do you, you know, I know you do a lot of,
Yeah.
you have a lot of history in punk and improvisation. So do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I should actually tell you a little bit about how uh, when I moved to Halifax, like where I ended up getting into the music scene.
Yeah,
And then I'll bring it back around to what to your point, what you were talking about,
go ahead.
is basically when I moved to Halifax in 2015. I was I was there's in how it is in Halifax, it's like kind of like two cities, kind of like there's the Dartmouth side and there's Halifax, and there's a bridge going across them. Anyways, I was
Okay.
on the Dartmouth side, and I was just, you know, new here, so didn't know much, just trying to check out the scene. I would go to like random bars or whatever, and everywhere I would go was mostly just like, you know, country music or that type of stuff. I mean, nothing against country music, but like definitely not like my realm of interest, I'd say.
Yeah.
So that's all I was seeing everywhere I would go, and I was just like, oh no, well, like where have I gone? Like this is not going to work out well. Until one random night, I was my aunt was visiting me. She had come from Iran, and we went to go out to check out music or have a drink or something, and then I just heard like some horns in this distance, and we both like just like ran.
Like,
We were like,
what
okay,
is
let's
that?
go, let's see. Yeah, and it was this
My
and it was this
people, where
band.
are you?
Yeah, yeah, and it was like the right kind of horns too, you know. Like I was, as soon as I heard it, I was like, okay, these guys are doing something that I wanna see.
Yes.
And like we just ran, and it was this band called TZE, Transatlantic Zodiac Ensemble,
Oh, wow.
and they're
Yes.
based in Halifax. Like, and they're no longer performing as the original lineup, but like Mike Dalton is the person, the songwriter. Anyways, and the horn players in that are Andrew McKelvey and Andrew Jackson, who are also on my record that's coming out on October 16th.
Awesome.
So that's the day that I actually connected with them. I just like went and talked to them, and they're fantastic musicians and like really community driven people too. So they were very receptive of me as well. Like they came to my place like after 2 days just to like hang out and see, you know, what we're talking about, and we've been friends ever since. And their my understanding of music was very different from the time. Like there's definitely like at the time before I moved to Halifax and time after here, because like once I met these musicians and like saw their approach to improvisation, and like for example like Andrew's like McKelvey he's kind of like talked about Jerry Grunelli's approach to like improvisation, which is like there's this creative music workshop where it comes from a more spiritual place, or I think it's different for each person. Like I saw it differently, but like it showed me a different side to improvisation, and then I realized that like you can take inspiration from anything essentially in as you were saying, like the bird songs, or Halifax has this when you're trying to go across the street, the light that comes on has a sound, which is like da, 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 da.
Yeah.
And or like something as simple as that, and I was like, oh, this can relate to like a lot of people who have like it's a familiar thing. So like based on that, I could like create like a whole arrangement or composition, or you know, or include that in an improvised section of my song. Yeah.
Awesome. Yes, thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
for taking us on that part of the journey. That's really good. Yeah, because you were mentioning a lot of like how the spiritual elements and stuff like that. And I was just thinking of, as you're saying that, I'm having another conversation in my head because I'm thinking of like Dr. Lonnie Smith, and I'm just thinking
Mhm.
about people who exactly do exactly what you're
Mhm.
pinpointing in terms of pulling that
Mhm.
influence from different areas. Whether it's the birds or the traffic lights or whatever it is that's
Yeah.
going on, but it's around us and it's influencing what we're doing. So yeah, thanks.
Mhm.
I'm glad you're still working with a lot of local artists in Halifax as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And this album that I have coming up, I wrote all the pieces kind of with everyone that was around in mind. Yeah, like
Okay.
when I was writing them, I was thinking of who's available and who's going to be performing this, because like I was writing to record it. Like I had the intention of wanting to put this out, wanting to create this, and I'm really privileged and like very like lucky and happy that I had a chance to do this, because during a pandemic with everything is on the edge, like anyone can be at an exposure site and the whole thing is just called off, like um
Yes.
so
It's
it's
like,
definitely
and that's going to be paused. Yeah,
been
exactly.
yeah. And I'm actually like blending some stuff from my Iranian background with the stuff that I studied, like with jazz and the two different types of traditions. For example, in Iranian music, like, there's a tar player here, like the Iranian tar, which is a
Yes.
microtonal fretted instrument. And this person's name is Mohammad Sahrai, and he is yeah, so he's a fantastic musician, and we're actually together. We have another ensemble together with and the group of musicians called Open Borders, and and he's essentially trying to make a museum in Halifax, a world music museum. But I don't know how I feel about the world
Yeah,
music,
I know. Yeah, I'll
but
tell you what I think in a minute, but go ahead, please.
so essentially trying to like he has all these like ancient instruments so that he wants to like
Awesome.
display and show people.
Yes.
So he's on it, and we do like a lot of like non-metric improvisational stuff that comes from the Iranian context, and then we mix that up with jazz and like the type of harmony that is used and the rhythm that's used in modern jazz, and that's what this album like really features, like a lot of the local musicians that are here but come from different backgrounds of improvisation and you know compositional styles and all that
Yeah.
jazz.
I like it. Exactly. But that's what makes, I guess, also jazz. But even for my show, when I'm using folk acoustic sounds, I agree. Like I just see, I guess I see them, I guess see the music as traditional music, no matter where it's coming from. For me, that's how
Mm-hmm.
I see folk. And yes, what we're creating is often, it might be in a certain style, but yeah, it's definitely influenced by the world. So yeah, I see the
Mm-hmm.
global aspect of how things are brought in together. But yeah, world
Yeah,
doesn't quite yeah, it doesn't quite pinpoint
yeah,
what's
yeah.
really
World music is
happening.
like
It doesn't
yeah,
really, yeah, because it could be
yeah,
anything. And it's like, okay, what's the beats? Is it more contemporary?
yeah,
Is it traditional? What's happening? And
yeah.
so,
And
yeah,
I feel like the like the word like world music is and it is a bit problematic because it is like putting this place in the center, like, and they're like, oh, everything like else is like I don't know, it doesn't sit
it
right with
does.
me,
It
like,
does. It
but at the
becomes,
same time you
yeah,
have to like in all these like forms that I'm filling and like funding applications, like if I'm you have to specify what you are, and the options are like, okay, it's like world, and you have to like select that, like, so it's like you're like, oh, okay, like maybe it's not that
I
I
know,
don't know
which
if
is
it's
why I'm
actually
like,
that
yep,
important to fight
it's,
for it, or
yeah, I'm like, it's folk, it's acoustic. That's what it is. That's what I'm going to
yeah.
tell you. But yeah, I know it's very hard to fill out applications and as an artist, how you identify your music is a little bit broader. It almost be
Mhm.
like, yeah, it's probably time. It's time for perhaps some more
Yeah, and
modern
the thing is like that if you
classifications.
are in like a if you select like folk and like that category. Like if let's say there's a funding that panel that's going to decide whether you get money for your album or not, is they're comparing you with the other folk artists. So that's what they have in mind. So they're like, no, this is not right. Like,
Yeah.
that's where the
It's
disadvantage
like they
comes
don't
in. Like,
quite fit into, yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. This is why I'm glad there are artists like yourself that are kind of, do you find that you're also then, we'll get into the album, I promise. But just because you've raised this, but do you find that you're kind of redefining that just by doing the work that you're doing? You know, you kind of push
yeah,
the envelope.
I
It's
feel, I
time.
feel yeah, a lot of people are doing that. I feel especially like the group that I'm in with, like Open Borders.
Yes.
It consists of Lucas Pierce on bass, Matt Gallant on drums, Youssef Musavi on guitar, Mohammed Sahrawi, and myself. And we have been like organizing concert series, and we call them International Music Concert, because
Awesome.
because we do feature from different places in the world. Like we have like Afghan pieces and Chinese music, and different from different places in Asia and Africa, and we have musicians who represent that area, and they for themselves would be performing that. It's like this massive like concert series that hasn't been able to take place since the pandemic has happened, but we've had like I think 3 or 4 of them so far.
Awesome.
And yeah, and we call them International Music Concert because we didn't like the the world term, I guess.
The world, yeah, it just feels, yeah, I understand what you mean. It's not meant to be inclusive. There's something about it that's quite yeah, a little deceptive on its definition. But yes, but let's get into the international sound of Lydium. And I know it's being released October 16th in Halifax.
That's right.
But we can still grab it, I imagine, all over the online world. But yes. I wanted to just ask you, let's start with even just the name Lydium. You know, are we talking about an ancient empire? Are we talking about beautiful, or both, or something else?
Yeah, so Lydium is the composition itself is it's a conceptual piece because it's based on the Lydian scale. It's a mode, and the root movements in it. It's basically like music theory. It's like the root movements are moving in thirds. So I would say it represents a prism, a Lydian prism. So then I was just like Lydium, but it doesn't really have anything to do with the other stuff that you were talking about, like the ancient.
Yeah, it's not about the ancient people or its connection to beauty, but it's more to do with the scale. You're talking about an actual musical.
Yeah, I'd like to think it has, maybe like now that you mentioned that, like maybe I can somehow make that connection to beauty, because like we're going to have our own interpretations of it. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, you did say it is a conceptual piece, so we can really, go on.
Yeah, and it does take us on quite a journey. This piece is like, it starts like very like mellow with the guitar and the flute on the piano, like, and each section has like a whole features a whole different piece, and like comes back around to what was played originally, and then there's like a surprise ending that's this massive explosion of like harmony and improvisation. So it does I don't know, I think we could interpret it as in a beautiful way, I would say.
It is it's got that whole film score quality about it. And yeah, I feel like what am I watching? You know, my mind just kind of drifts into these different images. So it's quite, I know you know this already, but it's quite well done. And but yes, I really have. So thank you for sharing that description of it and bringing me into the every thirds theory. I'll look more up on this, and then we can talk more about the Lydium scales. But is there anything else that you would like to that you're working on in the moment or on the horizon for you that you would like to also share, including the fact that you are releasing Lydium on October 16th, but is there anything else that you'd like to share today?
Yeah, I'm really excited to yeah, just put this record out on, as I said, it's on October 16th. I have the CDs as well, so like,
Awesome.
it's very exciting for me.
It is. And who's
Yeah.
the artist on the cover?
Oh, this is the work of Mohammad Bozorgi, who is
Okay.
a calligraphy artist
Yes.
based in Iran. And what it said, it actually says like Path of Creation on it. And he does
Sorry,
this like
repeat that.
fusion calligraphy where it's like,
Oh,
yeah,
Path of Creation.
yeah, it says it in like the Farsi script.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for
Yeah, it
explaining
is.
that. That's
Yeah, it is
amazing. It's
written like
gorgeous.
that, like over and over again, but like, and then the color pattern is like
I
switching
see
over.
what you're
Yeah,
saying. It keeps saying
he's
Path
amazing.
of Creation, and then it becomes, yes, its own.
Yeah, it's just over and over again. Like it's just like makes. I
That's
would, yeah, highly
that's
recommend
pretty
checking out
cool.
his stuff too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is
And
really
then
cool.
besides that, I have I'm already writing music for another project that's going to come out next year as well. And, yeah, and other than that, yeah, you can also like order this CD on Bandcamp. So it's like behrooz.bandcamp.com. Like you can search Lydium and my name, and
Hmm.
things should show up. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's Behrooz, Behrooz.
Hmm.
Okay. Yes, we'll definitely be looking into that. Well, yes, I've already dived into it, but yes, I am encouraging everyone to please, yes, take a look into and take a listen into and journey into what is Lydium. And the full album will be released October 16th in Halifax.
Thank you. And I'd just like to say also that the album was like recorded in Halifax, like which is also known as Chipuktuk and Mi'kma'ki, the unceded land territory of Mi'kmaq people. Just wanted to talk
Acknowledge
about
that.
that and how we are all treaty people and still trying to build these relationships.
Thank you. Thank you for that reminder. We are all treaty people.
Yeah, as also as new immigrants, I think it's important for us to like recognize that as well.
I was born here and I come from Jamaican heritage.
Mhm.
And yes, I realize that there is a lot that is missed. There's clearly a lot that is missed in my education, and my Canadian history education, including
Yeah.
myself as a Black person, but more importantly, what you're speaking on, and that is the continuity of Indigenous history here in Canada. And so, yes, I do understand what you mean. There is a kind of, for myself, it's an awareness and a respect of where I actually am, as
Yeah,
opposed to where
absolutely.
I'm
Yeah,
told I am.
yeah.
Yeah.
This I feel like, yeah, the sooner we recognize and just like understand the history of what happened here, and like because a lot of new immigrants, like they like we like I am a new immigrant, right? Like I came here in the last 5 years or so. So it's when I moved here, like I had no idea, like there's no like representation outside of Canada of like what the Indigenous people's history and like what essentially happened here. So yeah, it's definitely like I feel like it's important for new immigrants to understand, like that's the only way to know where you actually are. Like to see those relationships and recognize that what has taken for you to be in this place, and then because there's a lot of privilege also that comes with being living in Canada. And yeah, I want to like recognize that as well. And yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you,
Didn't want
Behrooz.
to leave it unsaid.
No, that's very important. And I'm glad you raised that. Thank you very much. Yes, and I'm sure our listeners and watchers will understand the importance of that. Really take the time, if you haven't already, to understand where you are and the history of where you are, and what's happening now. What's the continuity of that history right now, and understand that in context, and yes, and respect that, and yeah, because there is a certain other level of privilege that we have, and that we need to use that to always stay aware and
Yeah.
supportive.
Thank you.
So thank you, Behrooz. Mihankhah, and thank you for sharing. Sharing your musical theories, educating us on musical theories, and reminding us of the great instruments that bring this together, and that our skills level does not equal our worth. I think that's one of the best messages you've ever sent to us today, and for all your compositions and spending this time. I also wanted to say thank you to our technical director, Karen Young, on bringing this production together. I'm Kejo Buchanan, and this is CJRU Artist Review. Ashe.